Welcome, everybody. So, I put out an episode about GSSF and how you can use it for USPSA, IDPA, things of that nature, especially during the winter months when the weather's not the best. And I'm not even talking about cold. It could just be rainy, or maybe snow's melting and the ranges aren't in the best condition. But I had been hearing and seeing things about GSSF, and I wanted to give it a shot. And this indoor match allows you to shoot non Glocks. Your score doesn't count for anything because typically in a GSSF match, your scores aggregate over several different matches and you can actually qualify to win Glock pistols, but not if you're not shooting a Glock. Okay. I don't mind. I just want to go and shoot the match. So I did. And this is really going to be about this match, how it worked, and what the results were, what I learned, if you want to call it that. So this is my 15 to 25 yard target. And I had a couple loose ones. You can see that one. That one was by far the worst one right there. So, there we go. So let's go on. Here we go. So the indoor league option A, you shoot at 5, 7, 15, 20, and 25 yards. Every string is 10 rounds in length with a 15-second par time, and you're at the low ready. So you're 45 degrees below your line of sight is where you're aiming. You're ready to go. So it's two hands. You could shoot one hand if you wanted, but it's typically two hands. And the RO standing behind you, he's giving the commands. Your target is turned 90 degrees away from you, so you cannot see it. Once he's done giving commands, you have to, like you're waiting for the beep of a timer, you have to wait for the target to turn and face you. Once it turns and faces you, you bring the firearm up from low ready up to the target. Very similar to, just bringing the gun up to your eyes, because you're probably staring at the middle of the target. You just have to bring the gun up, acquire the target in the dot, and commence firing. So let's talk about the scoring real quick. How does that work? So the middle circle, which is, if you see right back here, this one right here, is 4 inches in diameter. The second one so that would be the X ring, the 10 ring. Now there's no markings on the target. So it doesn't say X ring, 10 ring. I'm just adding that in so you understand. Because on the scorecard, which I'll show you later, I believe it does say X's. So they would be used for tiebreaker. So you have your 4-inch diameter X ring. You've got an 8-inch diameter 10 ring. And I believe the 8 ring is 12 inches in diameter. I'm like 99% sure of that. 99.100% sure. Everything outside of that is now a 5. But if you look up here on the back, actually, as a matter of fact, let me just go back for a moment. So anything here in the white is a 5. So that is a 5. If it's outside of this line, if it doesn't touch that line, so if it's in the gray out here, that would be a 0. That's a miss. Or if it's not on target, it's a miss. So that's the scoring. That's how that works. You can see I was at Green Top Shooting Range down there. Shout out to them. So here is my 5 and 7 round result. Okay. So most of them, 75% of them, were basically within that 4-inch diameter circle. Not quite centered up in the middle of it, but actually more were actually this is the 4-inch. Is that right? X10, 8. Yeah. So this is a 4-inch diameter circle, and you can see the vast majority of my rounds were within a 1 inch circle. So, or a 1 inch radius. So a 2 inch circle. The vast majority of them were there. That's shooting my rival, my Canic rival, with 124 grain Norma full metal jacket rounds. These were loose right here. They're still 10s, but these are loose. So you can see they're outside of the group. That's what that is. Visual impatience on my part. I was shooting faster than I needed to shoot. I wasn't letting the gun settle properly because think about it in USPSA, you'll see well, here, let's just do it. I've overlaid the USPSA A zone here. I am well within the A zone. So everybody like, oh yeah, look, you're fine. You saw what you needed to see. You got your hits, but I disagree. For GSSF, I disagree. I totally agree. In USPSA, it's probably like you needed to shoot faster. Okay. That's the difference between the two sports here. So, but going back here, I needed to slow it down, not slow it down. I needed to be visually patient and observe where the dot is on the target because I'm primarily target focused here, but I can see the dot. I was just shooting faster and not allowing the dot to settle enough before I broke the next shot. Lots of time, all the time in the world. I mean, think about it. Let's be generous and say it takes a full second to go from 45 degrees up to being on target, centered, ready to pull the trigger. A full second. Well, that's like drawing your pistol at USPSA or IDPA to a target and breaking your first shot. So that still gives you 14 seconds for those other shots. So that's a lot of time. So to be done in less than 10 seconds with 10 rounds doesn't make sense in this sport. You need to slow down, meaning I need to stop using that verbiage. You need to be visually patient and make sure you get the correct confirmation with your dot before you break the next shot. And that's what I did not do. So there again, there's the A zone. And I mean, you can see I had a nice little group going right in here. Everything was looking great. These two were just a little loose. But when you compare it to a USPSA zone, you're like, oh, okay. Well, shoot. All right, I would be fine. But I wasn't shooting USPSA. So for this match, I need to be a little bit more visually patient. Now let's look at the 15, 20, and 25 yards. And this is where I've got this guy way down here. It's like, and yes, I'm gonna slap up an IDPA and a USPSA target over this one. And I've got this one out here. This one's a little loose over there, but not nearly as bad as these two. And I did not call them out there. But this being my first match, I was more focused on following commands, doing what I needed to do, making sure that I wasn't doing anything stupid. So my mind was more focused on that stuff than it was what I was doing here. I just shot. But still, 77% of my shots so out of 30 rounds, I believe there were 23 that are touching or within that circle. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. So 22 outside of that 4.7 inch circle. So less than 5 inch circle. So not bad at all. This one and this one are the only two that I'm like, If they were all within the 8 inch circle, I would have been super happy, but they're not, but that's okay. I'm all right with that. I can live with that. First time, It'll look better next time. Here is what it looks like overlaid with a USPSA A zone. And I tried to center it up. So you can see it looks fairly well centered, maybe just a hair bit more to the right, but it wouldn't change the grouping other than maybe fully include that, or more of it would be included. I still have a tight Charlie, a little bit of a loose Charlie, and definitely a Delta. This is the actual Delta line here that comes down. So it would have been a Delta for sure. So definitely loose. This is the one I've got so 29 out of 30. That one could be tighter, but that one definitely, I don't know. I assume next match I won't have one like that because I'll be more focused on what I'm doing. I'll be a little bit more analytical of what I'm doing, paying attention to everything, and less of what's going on around me. Here's what the IDPA target looks like. So in this situation, I would be down 4 because the actual D ring for this GSSF target is the same size as the down 0 circle. So 28 of them were in the down 0. I had one down 1, and then this one down here, like the Delta, would be a down 3. So I was down 4 total if you're into the IDPA thing. Still not super bad, but not great. It's probably a bigger penalty here. That's the scorecard, and you can see they do break it down. X's. I had 18 out of 20 on the first string and 15 out of 30, so 50% on the second string, or second target. 18 out of 20 on the first target, 15 out of 20 on the second target, with the 8 and the 5. So total is 493 out of 500. Again, not too bad with what? 33 X's. 33 out of 50. So it's a 66% were X's. So let's talk about it real quick. What are some of the pros? Well, easy aiming, okay? It's easy to just center your irons or your dot in the target and shoot. Nothing difficult about that. It will make you practice visual patience, as it did me. I had to remind myself, slow down, you've got time, be visually patient. That's a pro. You have time to get a good solid grip before shooting. So you're at the low ready. There is literally zero reason for you not to have a great grip. I'm not saying perfect, but there's no reason you should have anything less than a great grip. You only need 3 magazines because I brought 6 and I loaded up 5. But all you have to do is there is a break between the 5 and the 7 and the 15 through the 25. So you shoot the 5 and 7 yard target, it comes back in, you replace it, and then it goes back down. But during that time, you have time to load up your magazine. So you only need 3 because the second target, you shoot 15, 20, and 25. They each need to be loaded with 10 rounds, and that's it. If you have 3 magazines, you are good to go. So you don't need a bunch of mags like you might at USPSA, especially if you're shooting something like single stack. Holy crap. Or, what used to be production 2 with 10, now with 15 rounds, you don't need as many, but still. Minimal ammunition required. Now, in some places, people are like, that's a negative. Well, not always. In this case, I think it was good. You came in, you shot the minimal amount of ammo, and boom, you were out. You were done. It's like, wow, that was fast. In my podcast, I talked about it. I was like, I think we started shooting maybe around 9:10, And by 9:35, I was done. Like walking out of that bay in, where the shooters were and each um, target was into that space where, you take off your hearing protection, you can take off your eye protection, stow everything in your bags, and then walk out into the general portion of the sales area. So it was quick. The thing is, if you go and listen to the podcast, I talk about why that's a benefit. How does that really play out, especially if you're going to shoot multiple divisions? Another pro, there's no penalties for misses or less than 10 rounds fired. In this situation, let's say that one shot that was down at 5 o'clock was in the gray. That's a miss. That's 0 points. But it's also 0 penalty points. It's just a 0. I just don't get points for the shot. That's it. So if I have a malfunction and I only get 6 shots off and they all make impact, I'm not penalized for the 4 shots that I didn't fire. I only get penalized for the fact that I get 0 points. So I've now lost 40 points just with the misses. The other pro is if you're an IDPA shooter, the 10 ring is the same size as the 8-inch down 0 center. And if you shoot USPSA or IDPA, the full size popper is 8-inch. That's the aiming area. Well, that's also the 10 ring on the target. So there are some benefits. All right, let's talk about the cons. It's easy to stare at the dot or the irons. It is. Because when you're really trying to, make sure it's an X, it does tend to want to draw your eye to the dot. So you've got to be aware going in that you really need to remain target focused. Par time makes it easy to rush. Remember I said visual patience and I didn't have any? That's why I was like, I'm on the clock. Ding, 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 ding. Whoop. Shot a little too fast. Slow down. You got plenty of time. There's no dynamic movement. It's all static. So that can be a con. For people who enjoy that aspect of practical shooting, you're not going to find that here. So that's a little bit of a downer, but there are some other things you can do. You have to reference the podcast episode, season 5, episode 6. You got to check that out. Minimal ammunition fired. I had it on a pro and now I'm going to have it as a con because some people like shooting heavy round counts at matches. Well, you're not going to find that here. So if that is the one thing that you use to determine whether a match is good or bad, you're not going to like this match at all. At all. And there's no added difficulty. What I call artificially added difficulty, meaning you're not going to find any no-shoots. You're not going to find any partial targets, no tuxedos, nothing like that. It's just an open target at 5, 7, 15, 20, 25 yards. That's what you're going to find. So if you're looking for other things, you're not going to find it here. However, you can artificially add difficulty yourself. Run one of those strings, weak hand or strong hand only. There you go. You'll add some difficulty real quick. So there are still things you can do. All right. So what's the strategy? Number one and most important, I think, is use all 15 seconds as necessary. Now, at 5 yards, do I need to use all 15 seconds? No. I can probably, for 10 rounds, get them done in about 10 to 11 seconds perfectly fine. And that's slow. Okay. So, a lot of people are probably going to be done in about 8 seconds or 10. It just depends. You have to remember, you're not just trying to hit the 8-inch circle. You're really trying to hit that 4-inch circle, which is not hard. But if you're shooting too fast, as I showed, I had one shot at 12 and one shot at 6 in the 8-inch circle and not in the 4-inch circle because I was shooting too fast. I was like, oh, dots there, bang. Oh, dots there, bang. Dots there, bang. So you got to be patient. Use all 15. Use what's necessary out of the 15 seconds to make sure you have confirmation of your dot or your iron sights. Register in multiple divisions. I had reached out to Morgan Leonhardt, and she had mentioned that this is the best bang for your buck. I only registered for one. It's my first match. I'm like, I'm just going to shoot one, see how it goes, because what if I don't like it? I don't want to be stuck there for 3 or 4, or just say, you know what, I don't care for it. I'm going to leave when I've taken up registration spots from other people, possibly, potentially. So I'm going to stay there and shoot. Now that I've shot it and now that I've had a chance to analyze it, especially the 45-minute drive coming back home, I'm like, okay, there's definitely some benefits here. Let me start thinking about this. You can shoot an optic in one division. You can shoot irons in another division. You can shoot strong hand only. You can shoot weak hand only. I talked about this a little bit in the podcast where, you could do 5 and 7 yards weak hand only. And then you could do 15, 20, and 25 strong hand only. Or you could do 5 yards weak hand, 7 yards strong hand, 15, 20, and 25 two-handed. There's so many different options. I even mentioned in the podcast you could shoot, let's say you only signed up for 2 divisions and you're going to shoot the same gun. Well, shoot one with an occluded optic and shoot one without an occluded optic just to see how you do. And that will really tell you, because you're under a time constraint and under match-like conditions, how well did you do on target focus with the 2 different guns or 2 different methods of shooting. So there are options here. It's not just, oh, it's a bullseye, or, oh, there's no static movement, or, oh, it's a low round count. It's like, no, look at all these other things. You have to take it all in as a whole and not just itty bitty pieces. So check out the podcast, season 5, episode 6. If you want to hear more in-depth stuff, it's still only like a 30-minute podcast, but it'll give you a little bit more discussion and less picture show of what was going on. And I hope you enjoyed the video.